All right. Welcome to part two of our post combine coverage. I'm Jeremy. That's Josh. We're the dads of football. We're talking the guys that lost in terms of the combine. Now, just so we're clear, obviously these guys are going to get drafted. They're going to end up on a football team. Well, maybe they won't get drafted. They'll end up on a football team, at least at some capacity. But there were some guys that were some big disappointments. We hit you with the winners last time. Now we're going on the opposite end of the spectrum. So here's what we got for you. I'm going to kick it off this time. I'm going to kick it off with two running backs right now, because if you're going to be a running back in the NFL, you need to do something better than everybody else out there. And these two guys I thought fell flat. Audric Estime out of Notre Dame is my number one. His 40 time was just so brutal. He was the slowest running back in the entire NFL combine. And it's bad. So here it is. I'm watching this at a cheerleading competition for my daughter, who's 7 years old. I have my computer open. I'm watching the combine. I can't hear anything because the music is so obnoxiously loud. So I had the closed captioning on. His numbers pop up, and I see the guys on the NFL Network saying that, oh wow, this is not what we expected. We thought low 4.5s maybe, but when you're running a 4.76 or whatever he ran, that's bad. I mean, you just expect it to be so much better. And again, he's a player. He's a guy that I had on my list as one of those I was excited about. And to be that far behind the other dudes, it was just a little bit scary. The other guy I have was Bucky Irving, running back out of Oregon. I just felt that he would be a dude that was going to be a little bit more athletic than what he showed out there. He didn't blow me away in any single one of his statistics, and I was just severely disappointed. I mean, he's jumping 29.5 as a running back. I'm just looking at him thinking, I expect so much more explosiveness out of a guy who's not necessarily physically imposing. You have to be able to do better than that. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old. I could probably jump 26. So if he's only beating me by 3.5 inches, we have a problem there.
I got to join you on the Bucky Irving thing, because there was already questions about his ability to actually absorb collisions, right? So you start
Yeah.
looking at explosiveness, and I think that's one of the things that killed him. I mean, the lower vert for someone that you thought was going to be hyper athletic. The real bummer is, at least for me, his 10-yard split was 1.54, which isn't
Yeah.
terrible, but
Yeah.
he doesn't pick up any speed. And again, I get it. Running back is a different position in the NFL today, right? They got to hit the hole. They got to get you 5 to 7 and set up the passing game, right? But he was.
But if you're going to be 5'9" and 190
Yeah,
pounds, you gotta do something.
yes.
Otherwise, you're just everybody else.
He's a Chicago guy. He's from the area. Like, I wanted him to do well, and yet you didn't get that out of him. So
I wanted him to do well too. The other dude I'd have on there, Cameron Kitchens, who I won't say too many bad things about. The one little thing was he was a little bit slower, but again, playing safety, being in the 4.6s, I can understand that. It's just I would have expected a little bit more pop out of him. So he's almost kind of like mid for me in terms of losers. He's not really a loser. It's just, if you're going to be one of the top two safeties, I just would expect a little bit better. That's all. I wasn't going to trash on him too bad. My last guy, I hate to be picking on Oregon, but DN Brandon Dorless, a guy that maybe wasn't going to be, one of the top 10 greatest DNs, which is it's a very dominant position right now. You have so many good DNs out there, but I thought he'd be better than what he was. And I thought all of his numbers were pretty disappointing. I'm trying to go back here and look at just some of them, but I mean, dead last in the 40. His vertical jump was okay at 35 inches, but compared to the other DNs, it just wasn't that type of explosive. Broad jump of 9.3. If he's really going to be playing DN, you would expect a little bit more than that. Now, he's a big dude at 285. maybe he's just going to have to move inside because right now he's not showing me he can run off the edge.
I think they talked about that in the coverage too, the potential of him having to move inside.
Yeah. And then he's going to be an undersized D tackle if that's what you want to do, which is not going to be the first time that we saw it.
Nope.
I mean, my guy from Iowa, Logan Lee, who had a good draft combine, by the way, he looked good, but again, it's two opposites. You could move Logan Lee outside more so than inside.
Yep.
I don't know. It was just something a little bit missing in the athleticism. I just was a little bit disappointed there. And again, if you're going to be a D tackle, he put up 21 reps. To me, you got to be more in the 24 range if that's what you're going to be doing. I just had a hard time with that one. And I think I've got one more guy here. I think I skipped over him here. My last guy, QB Spencer Rattler. He
Yes.
disappointed me, man. Wait,
Oh,
we said you said ahead of time there was a quarterback. Talk about Spencer. What did you see that you didn't like? And I'll tell you what I saw that I didn't like.
I mean, in general, I think we went in talking about not being super fond of Spencer Rattler, not having a lot of faith in him. Um, I, to me, and it's less to do with strength of arm, less to do. I thought for a guy that's played as much college football as he has, and
Mm-hmm.
I've got another quarterback I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but I mean, you're talking slowest 40-yard dash of all the quarterbacks for Spencer Rattler, which again, not a huge deal. It's 4.95. However, he's not a real big bodied guy, right? So you're believing that his ability to get outside the pocket is going to be supreme. Terrible broad jump. He didn't show off as incredibly athletic. I thought watching him throw routes on the outside part of the field, particularly the comeback, the ball came out of his hand. Slow isn't the right term, but that's how it felt. You know, the ball's not snapping out there in the same way that obviously Joe Milton did, and I'm going to get to him. But or as JJ McCarthy did. I mean, and this isn't fair. I'm not saying that Rattler looked like Sam Hartman, but I was no more excited about Spencer Rattler than I was Sam Hartman. So,
Yeah,
but
well, and here's the thing: back when he was at Oklahoma, when people were predicting him to be a Heisman Trophy candidate,
yeah,
you he was supposed to be more athletic. He was supposed to be a guy that could go outside of the pocket, that can make
yes,
plays happen. And I'm sorry, if you're rolling at 4.95, you're not making anything happen outside of the pocket. I think he basically little by little, ever since that first year at Oklahoma, he's been exposed a little bit more and a little bit more. And I think he's a smart enough guy. I think he's a wise enough quarterback, but I think we're starting to really see the shortcomings there. And he just did not impress in any of the physical attributes that,
yeah,
again, if you want a guy that's going to be more than just a one-dimensional pocket passer, you're going to have to do something more than what he did. And he just showed he can't do it. So if he can't do that and the ball's not jumping off of his hand and he's not looking like he's got elite power,
right.
I don't know, man. He may have just dropped himself to undrafted type status at this point.
Right, right. And you wonder if there were whispers about his ability to prepare and get ready. You wonder if maybe that's what was exposed.
Yeah.
So,
No. So those are my guys. Who
uh,
did you have on there?
so I'm going to start off with someone that I was really excited to watch. Really,
Mm,
really excited to watch. And we talked about him last week. Keon Coleman out of Florida State. I
yeah.
was shocked that he
I
ran
debated.
second slowest 40.
I
Um,
might I might have had him on there. I thought about that.
his vertical was not great, which I believed he was going to look like that guy that's winning all your 50-50 balls. Um, he starts to me looking like a fringe day two guy. He looks like a guy who, you thought maybe sneaks in to the top 10 receivers. I don't know. I don't know that he's that guy anymore. Even the way he received the ball, it looked clunky in comparison to the guys ahead of him. Not necessarily to your point earlier, he's still going to be drafted. He's still going to be given every opportunity to compete in the NFL at somewhere. But I really thought he not destroyed his draft stock, but just unimpressive, just completely unimpressive.
Just to put it there, I mean, we're talking about a highly competitive group. We just talked about it.
Yeah.
Receivers and cornerbacks are probably looking like the two where you have the most depth. And again, you have the most bodies there, but you've got a number of great guys there. I'm talking dudes like Lad McConkey out of
Yeah.
Georgia, Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina, who I mentioned, who looked really good. They may
Yeah.
have just jumped Keon Coleman based on the
Yep.
numbers that they put up. And there's other guys out there too. I mean,
Yep.
Troy Franklin may have not looked great, but he ran a 4.41,
Yep. And
which
Luke
is
McCaffrey even. I mean,
Luke
he
McCaffrey
had a
looked
day.
good in everything.
Right. Right.
I mean,
I mean, he's a
his
McCaffrey. They're
movement,
freak athletes.
when they're doing the drill, what do they call the drill when you run the gauntlet, where they're having to catch balls on either sides of
Let's
them?
go.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
looked fantastic in the gauntlet. I mean, so
Yes.
Keon Coleman was a
Lions.
dude that I would have thought would have been a standout, and he did not stand out.
No, no. Disappointing.
Yeah.
Disappointing. Guys, thought I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on this, right? Because everyone was gushing over Joe Milton's cannon, right? And I
Yeah.
even sent you a text at one point. He throws the ball 71 yards down the field. It was gorgeous to watch. And last year, I loved Anthony Richardson and his accuracy and his arm strength. Joe Milton has that arm strength. I'm not positive he has that accuracy. He makes up for a lot of deficits in a workout with that cannon. I Everyone is going crazy about him, and clearly I don't do what some of these talking heads are doing, but I was not overly impressed by his feet. I was
Mhm.
not overly impressed by his ability to deliver the ball on the in-breaking routes. Again, in shorts and a t-shirt, you can make up for that with your strong arm. But it just seemed like he was a tick behind, just trying to make up for it with his arm, which I think we've seen in the NFL that equates to interceptions. I mean,
Yep.
our own homegrown guy here, Justin Fields, that's what's killed him, right? And he is a fantastic player, but athlete, but you can't hold the ball. You got to get out of your hand. And in shorts and a t-shirt where the break's coming because there's literally a cone right there, get that ball out. You've got to be moving into your throw before. And there was an anticipation that seemed to be missing out of Joe Milton's game. And again, probably unfair. I'm not calling him a loser per se, but he was someone for me, especially when you started seeing that cannon. But at the end of it, I was like, great player. I mean, clearly, but just not sure
Again,
I'm sold.
as we've talked about, there have been a number of guys with huge arms, cannons.
Yeah.
I brought up, as soon as you texted me when we were talking about him in particular, I brought up Michael Bishop because he's the guy that I think of with the cannon
Right.
that had such. And I'll say this: I thought Michael Bishop had a much better college career than Milton had.
Yes.
He tore it up at Kansas State when he was there, and again, he would be the dude that he was the backup on the Patriots for a few years. You need a Hail Mary. That's who you call in because the dude could deliver it, and he did.
Yeah.
But he was missing the other parts of the game, and that might be where Milton is, which is kind of what he is. Who I thought he was.
Yes. Yes. And that's, I guess, I think we knew that. I think you and I had spoken about that before, but absolutely. Like he's kind of what you thought, a big armed guy who has to learn how to play the quarterback from an anticipation standpoint. And I think that's the hardest thing about playing quarterback in today's NFL. And to be honest with you, that's where when we talk about the athleticism of these cornerbacks, these receivers, these linebackers, the D line, that's what makes a great quarterback. Get it out of your hand, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, whether it's Josh Allen, who has from time to time held the ball too long. You learn very quickly. You can't just make up for anticipation with arm strength because people are going to jump that route. So
You got
but
one or two more names there.
I got two more for you.
Two more. That's what I thought.
You took a couple of mine. So I loved watching the line today. I had some time this afternoon, so I was watching a lot of the O line play. Dominic Puny out of Kansas or Pooney. It, Still probably going to be a day 2 pick. Still going to be a talented player. He's a big guy. There was just something about, and there always is, when these O linemen come in, right? They get to work out and prepare for the combine in a different way than they do for in season. So I always expect to see a little bit more quickness, a little bit better feet. Now he's a big, long guy. He's going to be just fine. He's going to play guard in the NFL. I just was not overly impressed by some of the things I had read about him coming in. Didn't blow me away. And then this next guy, again, I think, I gravitate a little bit, because we talked about it last week, towards some of the Oklahoma guys. One, coincidentally, my godfather played for Oklahoma, but two, I've got family in Oklahoma, so I tend to pay attention to Oklahoma State. Tyler Guyton, who is still going to be likely a top 40 pick. However, just looked a little sloppy in his footwork. Even when he was coming around that edge, just did not look as clean considering his athleticism. And that's everything you hear is his bend, his ability to come around the edge on a pull. Like I was shocked that, and again, he's a tackle, but he's 6'7", 326. I'm probably being unfair. However, I didn't watch it with the same enthusiasm that I thought I would. And I love watching the O-line. I do. I probably some of my closest friends from college, or at least in college, were O-linemen, and I was just surprised. I was surprised I didn't see more from him. Can I toss in just one little loser here? And it's not even a loser. Not even a loser. One of the coolest moments of the entire combine was watching Dalen Holker from Colorado State run the gauntlet, hold on to the ball, catch the other one.
Oh, that was cool, dude. That was cool.
It was totally cool. However, for a 6'3", 241-pound man, if that's your soul defining moment, and not that his 40 was bad and his 10-yard split was pretty good, he actually had a better vertical jump than some of the running backs that we were talking about, and a broad jump of over 10 feet. I wanted to see him build off that, and I don't know that he did. That, again, good player. He'll get drafted. He'll play in the NFL. But like that moment, as much airtime as it got, I wanted to see more of him and see him explode more. And I just didn't see that.
I think no one's going to remember anything from him other than the fact that he did that. And they're like, well, dude's got hands. I mean, if he could do that, he's got some good mitts right there. So that part was kind of cool to see him do it. And the funny thing is, if you look up around social media, there were so many cool, different viral moments. I sent you the one with, was it Roma Dunze, who stayed out on the field, refused to leave because he was trying to get the cones right. I don't think he ever figured it out.
No. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but I love that moment. You know what? And this is like a dweeby one. This is like a silly quarterbacky one. JJ McCarthy hanging out with Jerry Rice and Chris Carter. And here's the thing to me, and this is why I was kind of impressed by the kid. I know I'm going back to our winners, but that moment, that single moment of watching him have a conversation with two of the best receivers of all time, and he didn't look overwhelmed by talking with them. He looked respectful. He seemed to enjoy the conversation. And when he spoke, they were eating it up. And I'm like, man, maybe this kid's got something that admittedly, maybe my slight bias towards Michigan players or against Michigan players was wrong. Because that was a cool moment for me. I love seeing the old timers walking around talking to him, watching Deuce Staley all over the place. It was just, It was neat. It was neat. So,
well, it's crazy. The combine came, it's gone. Now we have the little side stories that play up until the draft. It'll be interesting to see what happens up until then, but rest assured, the Dads of Football will be bringing you the action. We'll be talking about it, the biggest stories leading up to it. That's where we're going to be on. So make sure to like, subscribe, and look out for it. Until then, we'll see you next time.